Welcome to episode 23 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. This is our season 1 finale, and there is so much goodness packed in here that you're not going to want to miss out on. I don't have a guest today, but instead have content from more than a dozen duct tapers, plus some favorite laughs from all of our season 1 guests. We're going to reflect on what we've learned and what we've accomplished, and we're going to spend some time laughing at some fun memories. I can't wait to start. Let's get to it.
Hey there, this is Danny Sunshine Bauer from Better Leaders, Better Schools, and the School Leadership Series, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts. Make sure you check out all the other great podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com and get ready because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Hello! I cannot believe it's come this far. 23 episodes, a full 5 months of episodes, 21 amazing guests, dozens of amazing edtech tools, even more great ideas, oodles of Flipgrid videos, hundreds of fun tweets, and thousands of impossible to identify adjacent possibles. I have been so thrilled to bring this first of what I hope to be many of seasons to you. I am so grateful for all of you who have listened and are here again with us today. Thank you. So as you can already tell, I'm packing up my soapbox, high horse, 80s theme song, and microphone for the summer, but I'm not checking out. I'm just redirecting my focus on other projects, including bouncing around the country to speak and meet as many duct tapers as I can. I plan to start season 2 in early August to share some back-to-school duct tape ideas and may even record an episode or two in June or July if I've got special stuff to share. But before we worry about all that stuff, let's dig into today's episode. This episode will feel a little different from our typical episodes. I'll still share some hashtag EduDuctTape tweets and an Apple Podcast review, but we'll be Sans guest today and also Sans soapbox. And that's okay because we're going to hear from so many duct tapers. The meat of the show will be a bunch of duct tapers' season 1 classroom success stories, things from the show that they've tried out in their classrooms, and then after the other duct taper sharing, OMG, do I have a surprise for you guys. I have made what I can only call the hashtag EduDuctTape Season 1 Giggle Mix for you. Yes, I called it the Giggle Mix, and you're not going to want to miss that. See, I think there are 2 super important things to do as us Northern Hemispherites wrap up our school years. Number 1, reflect on what we've accomplished, and that's what we're doing in our Season 1 Classroom Success Stories. And number 2, reflect on all the good times. For you, those are your experiences with your students and with your colleagues. But here, those are the laughs that we've shared on the show. And so to fulfill that goal, I'll be presenting to you the Season 1 Giggle Mix. I gotta tell you, it was fun listening back to all the funny things that have happened throughout these first 22 and now 5 minutes worth of episodes. And I can't wait for you to hear it. It was a lot of fun preparing it for you. But first, a few things to share. First up, GIF a Day Cohort 2 of the Google Sheets Ninja Level 1 learning opportunity will kick off in July. July 8th is the day that I have circled on my calendar at this point. It'll be the same as the one going on right now with some tweaks based on this first iteration and the feedback that I've received. Sign up to be notified when registration opens at jakemiller.net/gifaday. That's jakemiller.net/GIFADAY. To be clear, it's not new GIFs, it's a second cohort of the current GIF a Day experience for those of you who missed out on the maiden voyage. Next up, the Teach with Tech conference. I'll be recording my presentation in the next day or two, and I'd love to have all of you duct tapers tune in for it. But more importantly, there are 59 other presenters, and they're all much cooler than me. So it'd be in your best interest to sign up. Head over to teachwithtechconference.com to get in on the summer PD so that you can tune in from your couch, beach chair, morning room, swimming pool, or wherever. Speaking of summer PD, where else will I be? I'll be at the KEEP Conference in Ohio on June 11th, and the LEAD Conference also in Ohio on June 18th. Eric Scheninger is the keynote for that LEAD conference. I'm psyched to see him speak. I will be at ISTE in Philadelphia from Saturday to Tuesday. Here's a little rundown of my ISTE schedule. Let's see, on Saturday, I'm doing a presentation about something that I call educational duct tape. Yeah. And on Sunday, I hope to be at the We Video VIP event. Fingers crossed on that one. And the Education Podcast Network Meetup, where I will eat cheesesteaks and pass out stickers. On Monday, I'll be presenting stop motion slides and plan to attend the Flipgrid event and Student Voice Speakeasy in the evening. I'll be flying out on Tuesday afternoon, but I will have hopefully met every single duct taper in Philadelphia before then. If you're there, please say hello. In July, I've got a few school-specific events, plus the online Teach with Tech conference that I mentioned earlier, the launch of the second GIF-A-Day cohort, which I also mentioned earlier, and the Cypress-Fairbanks Digital Learning Conference at the end of July. Eek, you guys, I will be hanging out with Tony Vincent, Casey Bell, Eric Kurtz, Marcia Kish, Kayla Delzer, Leslie Fisher, Amy Meyer, and Trish Raffi, and plus, the real bonus for me, all of my duct taper buddies down in the Lone Star State. I am so psyched for that 2-day conference. August and September are kind of empty for me, to be honest, but I'm excited to be at Twinsburg Schools, the Quincy Conference in Illinois, and the TCCA Summit in Texas in October. I'm excited to add to this list the keynote at Michigan's MiGoogle Conference in November. I'll also be doing a mini-keynote at the Ideastream Technology and Learning Conference in Cleveland in November. One of my goals for my time away from the podcast is to update my speaking page. So if you head over to jakemiller.net/speaking, you may just see a revamped page with some videos and sessions and info. I'd love to chat about being at your event. Hit me up, yo. All right, and now for one of the two important things that educators need to do at the end of the school year, at least in my opinion, and that is to reflect on growth, reflect on accomplishment, reflect on the brave things that you did in your classrooms. And to do that, here on the Educational Duct Tape podcast, I reached out to the duct tapers and got a whole bunch of responses of what people took away from the show and tried out in their classrooms. And my goal was not to say, like, look how great our podcast is and look what everybody heard from it. My goal was to say, look at what you accomplished, duct tapers. And so I know we had about a dozen people respond, and I know the rest of you probably had other awesome things that you did and just haven't had time to share. And that's totally understandable, but I want to celebrate what you did. So even if you didn't submit it, maybe pause the show and say what exciting thing you did in your classroom or in your school or in professional developments you led as a result of an idea you heard in the show and maybe a spark that it set off in your mind, that kind of an adjacent possible idea. Give yourself a pat on the back for that. Tell yourself how wonderful you are and how proud of yourself you are, because you should be. You should be. It's exciting and brave to try new things, especially when we see so many other people in our life, not just educators, but just other people who are willing to sit back and let other people do the brave things. And if you tried new things, you did the brave thing. So go you. So let's hear from some of our duct tapers about what they did. First up, I can't pick any other video to start than this one. Allison McCutcheon sent me this video almost right away after I put up the Flipgrid looking for these submissions. And I've got to be honest here. I watched Allison's video for the first time with tears in my eyes because it was just so cool seeing all of the things that she accomplished. And she gives me a lot of credit and gives the show and my guests a lot of credit in this, but really, Allison, the credit here is you and your students. You guys deserve it. They worked hard and you worked hard trying something new out in your class. So even though you might have heard some ideas here, you did the hard work of putting it in action. So thank you for sharing it. But Allison, I'm proud of you for doing this stuff. So let's check out what she has to share.
Hey, Jake and fellow duct tapers. My name is Allison McCutcheon and I teach 5th grade in California. Thanks to the Educational Duct Tape podcast, I have integrated more tech this year than I've ever done before. We've used Flipgrid and PeerGrade a lot, as well as Google Drawings, Sites, and Google Slides. We created podcasts, Adobe Spark Pages, book creator books, and even wrote a class book with Boomwriter. We have mystery Skyped with about 10 classes around the United States and Skyped with some experts as well. This led to a huge idea. I decided to have my students get in small groups and research a national park. We were lucky enough to connect with 10 different park rangers online. We learned so much from these experts. We used Wakelet to curate our research and made some awesome Wii videos about the national parks. We used a green screen, Google Tour Builder, Screencastify, Jamboard, and the Remove Background app. In addition to these videos, we created cardboard structures with make-do screws, which challenged our collaboration and engineering skills. We presented our creations and videos at our annual open house, and the parents and siblings loved our magical National Park Wonderland. I am so glad I started listening to your podcast, Jake, and I truly appreciate everything you and your awesome guests have shared this first season. I can't wait to see what's next.
Well, I've already decided on one part of what's next, Allison, and that's having you on the show in season 2. Look at all of those awesome things you did. That is just so crazy cool. And the best thing about this is Allison also created a video because it was for Flipgrid. And so if you head over to the Flipgrid, which I will link into the show notes, you could see her video, and there's pictures of her adorable students trying things out in class. And as you could hear, some of the parts were video because you can hear some of the audio there coming through from those videos, but you could see some of the stuff they actually did. Allison, this is just mind-blowingly awesome. Your students are so lucky to have you as an educator. The number of things that you tried out in your class, just super, super cool. And for those of you that are like, well, I didn't try out 20 different things like Allison did, that is totally okay. Remember the quote that we shared earlier in the season from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. So hopefully you all have a story of what you did this year to keep moving forward, or through this show maybe to keep moving forward. And by the way, first of all, listening to an educational technology podcast is forward motion in and of itself, because you're taking it upon yourself to learn more. So even if you're not doing as many amazing things as Allison is doing, that's totally okay, because any forward movement is special. That's exciting. That's great that you're doing that for your students. Speaking of trying new things for those students, let's hear what Dan Stitzel from Ohio has to share.
Hey Jake, hey fellow duct tapers, this is Dan Stitzel. You can find me on Twitter at Mr_Stitzel. I am a ed tech coach as well as a language arts teacher. This first season of Educational Duct Tape was phenomenal. There were so many new tools and tips and tricks that I learned that I used in my classroom as well as helped other people learn. The one thing that really stuck with me from this first season was one of Jake's soapbox moments about the paralysis of choice. It really hit home because I was thinking about all these times where I would get really excited over new tools that I learned about, and I'd push them out in my classroom right away, and I'd give my students like 5 different choices at one time. And they would always default back to the traditional slideshow. And I always wondered why. I'm like, you're getting all these new fun tools and all these things that I didn't have when I was your age. But then I really thought about that. They were just extremely overwhelmed. And so I kind of stepped back a little bit and started to push maybe one new tool out with something they already knew. So they had that choice of, that comfortable traditional route, or maybe trying the one new thing. So that was really wonderful. And I also found that useful with working with teachers who maybe felt overwhelmed with technology, kind of pushing one thing or showing them one new tool at a time rather than all the things that I wanted to. So thank you, Jake. I'm looking forward to the next season.
I love Dan's talk about how the paralysis of choice or paradox of choice relates to the way we present the project options to our students and the way it affects them when we give them a lot of choices. I never really thought of it in that venue, but it totally makes sense. If he's giving them 5 different options, they might feel like it's a risk to choose one of them, and they resort to the safe option. So maybe putting in one at a time, like he's talking about doing there, is a good one. And that's also very, very true in tech integration coaching, as he said, when communicating new tools with the teachers. If you communicate a lot of tools, they're going to get overwhelmed. So great stuff there from Dan. Dan, by the way, is presenting at ISTE. So those of you going to ISTE, be on the lookout for him, and his co-presenter is going to be coming up a little bit later in this episode. And I'm hoping to spend a lot of time hanging out with Dan and Molly. It's nice to have some fellow Ohioans that I know around to hang out with while in the strange land of Philadelphia. Up next, let's hear what Tom Griffin has to share.
Hey Jake and Duct Tapers, my name is Tom Griffin. I am a high school instructional coach and blended U.S. history teacher outside of Des Moines, Iowa. My Twitter handle is trgriffin1, and the interview with Angelo Otecki really helped push me to actually create an ebook with my students. It's something I'd been talking about doing and something I've been wanting to do. We do a lot of primary source research and writing. We use a lot of different secondary sources in our history curriculum, and having students write something that is authentic and meaningful for them is just, that's always the goal. And so giving them choice in their topic, and then giving them the ebook as a format to actually share their voice and produce their work for a real audience was just unbelievable. And it turned into one of our capstone projects for the year. So we're just finishing it up, and it's turned out better than I ever could have imagined. And so just having that extra push and that inspiration, love sharing ideas and hearing ideas from the podcast and from the community, and really is changing my approach to the way I'm trying to get students work out there in the world and help them make connections to things they care about and with people they care about, and really get that civic mindedness and going from research to action.
Tom, that one was so exciting. I really want to see this book that you guys have created. First of all, the first thing that excites me about it is that you're doing capstone projects with your students, and especially in high school. I just love the idea of performance-based assessments and tasks and things like that, like capstones, things better than a final exam at the end of the year, where the students actually have a product to take away at the end of the year to show pride in. This is what we accomplished. This is what we learned. This is what we did. This is what we created. We actually have something to show for it. So how cool of you to do that. And for those of you who haven't heard Angela Woteki's episode, which was like episode 8 or something, I'm not really sure. She shared 4 different ebook tools that you could use, and they were phenomenal ideas. That was a great episode. So I do recommend you go back and listen to that if you have not. So Tom, thank you so much for sharing about that. And again, I hope I get to see that book when it's all said and done. Thank you so much for sharing about it. Up next, let's hear what episode 2 guest, the very first guest of the Educational Duct Tape podcast, Ann Radefeld, has to share.
Hi to all of the duct tapers out there. This is Ann Radefeld from episode 2 of the podcast. I wanted to let you know that I've learned so much listening to Jake's podcast since January when he rolled it out. The first thing I learned was actually from Jake during my podcast with him, or my interview with him. I learned about Skype a Scientist. So I was able to use Skype a Scientist in March with my 6th grade teachers. I set up a Skype a Scientist to talk about cells to their 6th grade classes. Additionally, I really was pushed to use Wakelet because I've been hearing about it so much. And then finally, after I listened to the episode where it was mentioned on how to best take notes, I decided to use that as a part of one of the book studies I did for my staff this year. In addition to Wakelet, I also used Synth in that book study, and I was so impressed with Synth. I love it, and it's a tool I'm going to use again. Also, Jamboard was mentioned so many times that now finally I convinced a math teacher in my district to try to use it, and he is going to give it a try next week, and I'm going to go observe his lesson. So thank you for all of the great ideas and to all of the great guests out there. I can't wait to hear more from Jake and from his guests next school year. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Ann. I've got to tell the rest of you listening, other than Ann, that if you have not listened to episode 2 of the podcast with Ann, you are missing out. And I can look at the statistics and tell, as we know is probably true of podcasts, more people have listened to the recent episodes than listened to the early episodes. I think that's typical, but Ann's episode is just phenomenal. So she mentioned there that I showed her Skype a Scientist, and she has used that since. She showed me like 5 or 6 different distance learning and global connections tools and things like that, and great ideas. It was a phenomenal episode. I know I took so much away from it myself. Awesome, Anne, that you started using Wakelet and Synth, and that you use Wakelet for a book study. That's very cool. And have a math teacher trying out Jamboard. Very, very cool. Up next, with another long list that made me feel really, really good about myself, is Debbie Tannenbaum.
Hey Jake and fellow duct tapers, you wanted to know how the podcast has inspired me? Well, here's at least 6 reasons why. The first reason, I'm sure you're not surprised, is CS and SF when you had Carly Mora on your show. I love that website, and I have learned so much through trying things on that website. Here's just 2 examples. One of my kindergartners trying to use and make models of computers, and then another one where my 2nd graders were using Pear Deck to learn about examples of computers. My second big idea is that I'm actually going to take a leap and do stop motion animation with you at ISTE. I'm super excited about doing that. I've never done stop motion animation. Plus, it gives me a chance to meet you in person. So that's another plus. My third big idea or inspiration is that I'm trying sketchnoting. I actually have my book at home, and I have made it through the first few lessons, and I'm shocked I can actually sketchnote. My next one is that I've made so many connections through Twitter to build my PLN. I had never, ever heard of some of the people who were on your show, and now I'm following them on Twitter and I'm building my professional knowledge. Thank you so much for all of that. My next idea or inspiration is your soapbox moments. So many of your soapbox moments have inspired me. Here's just one example when you talked about sometimes failing at something ambitious can be better than succeeding at something easy. It really resonated with me. Another example is when you talk about adjacent possible. Many adjacent possible moments have happened for me because of your podcast. And last but not least, I would have never tried GIF a Day if it hadn't have been for listening to your podcast. I love learning new things about Google Sheets every day that I can share with the teachers at my staff. So that's it. Those are just 6 reasons how the podcast has inspired me. Going to miss listening to my Wednesday morning commute favorite podcast, but look forward to more next year. Thanks.
I like how at the end there, Debbie said those are just 6 things that she did. Debbie, those are 6 pretty huge things. So CS and SF, yeah, I remember Debbie tweeting about how pumped she was about it. Really fantastic resource for anybody who teaches computer science or even just wants to get a little bit of computer science into their classes. Go back to the episode with Carly to hear more about it. Debbie, I can't wait to meet you at ISTE. I'm glad you're going to be in the stop motion slide session, but really I just want to hang out and meet other duct tapers, so I'm so glad you're going to be there. And then the Twitter PLN, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's huge. There's just so many opportunities to learn on Twitter out there, and I appreciate the kind words about the soapbox moments and your participation in GIF a Day. I know that it's a lot of information to take in learning this much about spreadsheets, and I appreciate your ambitions to do that. Debbie created like a slideshow that goes along with her video, so I do recommend hopping over to the Flipgrid and checking it out because she's got some images and things like that that go along with her message that I think you will really enjoy. Up next, we're going to hear some sharing from our friend Sarah Kiefer.
Hey Jake and all you duct tapers out there, Sarah Kiefer from Cincinnati. You can find me on Twitter at KieferSJ. And absolutely love Jake's podcast this year. Listened to it every single week, a lot of times while I was walking at our daughter's soccer practice. Lots of great thinking shared and everything. Loved Class Kick, tried it out. And 4th grade intervention specialist and her group of kids really enjoyed that. But the biggest impact was Jake's soapbox moment about the adjacent possible theory. I shared this podcast with our curriculum director, and about 4 days later during a small group district-wide discussion, she actually played Jake's podcast about the adjacent possible theory, and we all shared in his wonderful knowledge and thinking about it, and it had a profound impact on everyone. We're working through a strategic plan, so that was perfect timing. So thanks for sharing that, Jake, and I look forward to next season and all the good learning that's going to happen.
Sarah, thank you so much for this, and thank you for sharing about your use of Class Kick. I'm so glad you tried it out, and about how much you enjoyed the adjacent possible theory and how you're seeing it regularly. I feel that way too, but I really, really want to thank you for sharing about what happened in your school district with you sharing that. It is just so cool to see the content that I'm making here be used in a way that not only is just helping the people that are directly listening to it, but helping the people they work with. So I'm just honored to be a part of, your district's endeavors and your work to benefit students. So that is so awesome. And thank you for sharing that. Up next, let's hear from friend of the show, John Hartman.
Hey, Jake and fellow EduDuctTapers. My name is John Hartman. I used to teach 3rd grade. I'm going to be teaching 4th grade when we kick back up in August in the St. Louis, Missouri area. My Twitter handle is HartEL30, HARTEL30 on Twitter, if you're trying to find me there. One thing that stands out to me as far as successes after listening to the podcast this season was the idea of the adjacent possible. One thing, actually 2 things, I guess, that I put in. One was choice menu boards. I don't believe that I was 100% successful with those yet, But I think the adjacent possible idea is great with that because we tried them, and now I can see where we can go next with them as we move to the new year. And I'm going to keep most of my kids, so they're excited. The other thing that we tried, was already doing, but tried even more after hearing it on the podcast, was WeVideo creations. And again, with the adjacent possible, I don't think anything my students were doing was phenomenal and Oscar worthy, that kind of thing, but it showed them what was possible as they move forward and get better and better with the tool. And some of them may want to get into that field, video editing or media editing later, just because of that. So that idea that the adjacent possible is what I'm taking away from this season. So appreciate all you do, and thanks for all the tips and tricks that you've given us. Thanks.
Thank you, John, for sharing that, and thank you for being a dedicated listener to the show. I love your reflections on using choice boards and WeVideo, and understanding that maybe things don't go exactly as you would hope the first time, and they're not, as you say, Oscar worthy the very first time around, but it is a growth process, and you can't expect perfect successes the first time, but you understand that by trying things out, you're giving yourself the chances at making huge gains later on in the future. It's like something I talked about earlier in the show in another episode, which was sometimes it's better to fail at something ambitious than it is to succeed at something easy. And while you're not actually saying you failed here, what you're saying is you tried some ambitious things and maybe they didn't become the amazing things you hoped they might have been, but you saw the areas of growth there. You see, this is good because ... of where you can go from there and what great things you could do for these students as you work with them again next school year. So thank you so much for sharing about that. Up next, we have the second part of the Streetsboro, Ohio team that's presenting at ISTE. We played Dan Stitzel earlier in the show. Here is his collaborator in Streetsboro, Molly Clodor.
Hey, this is Molly Clodor. I loved listening to the first season of Educational Duct Tape, and I can't wait for the next season to roll out. I've learned a ton from listening to this first season. I've used Peer Grade. It was a program I had used once before and loved it, but forgot about it. And when Sarah brought it back up in her episode, I knew I had to try it again. So I picked it up again mid-year and loved using it again. My coworker and I started our own podcast to talk about the great things that were happening in our district after we listened to Angela Witecki's podcast episode about her podcast. I said a lot of podcasts in a very short period of time. And I also have reinstated using more choice projects as a result of listening to a lot of the great ideas that other guests have shared. So excited to hear where our next season of Educational Duct Tape goes. Thanks.
Thank you, Molly. Some truly great shares there. So Molly talked about Peer Grade, which she heard mentioned by Sarah Rivera in her episode, which was episode 3. And she also talked about the podcast that her and Dan do for their school district, which was an endeavor that they took on after hearing of a similar endeavor from guest Angela Witecki, which she shared about the district podcast that she leads for her school district. What a cool way for educators to share out to the other educators and to the public about what's happening in their school district, all of the exciting things, in more of a long form format than just a newsletter that goes home. And it's a little more convenient for your audience rather than having to read those long newsletters. They could just listen to the podcast, maybe on the commute to work or whatever it might be. What a cool way to share. So, Molly, thank you for sharing about that. And thank you also for sharing about your experiences with choice projects. Here comes another one with a whole bunch of stuff shared. This is Amy Huckabee. And Amy, wow, you accomplished a lot this year. Thank you for sharing about it. You did a whole lot of things and your excitement is just, inspiring. And I'm so glad to hear about it. So let's hear what Amy has to share.
Hi, Jake. Hi, Educational Duct Tape community. My name is Amy Huckabee. I'm at Amy J. Huckabee on Twitter, and I live in Loveland, Colorado. I teach K-5 computer applications, and I discovered the podcast over Christmas break. We were planning for a long flight, and I filled up my phone with podcasts, and I'm so glad I did. I've listened to every single one since then. I've implemented a lot of things. I have a lot more confidence in my classroom. I've gotten my Google educator certification recently, and we laugh every day at school. We've tried Jamboard. We've tried Chatterpix. This is my first Flipgrid. I tried ClassKick and AnswerPad with some of the younger classes, and it's all good. We're learning together, and I'm very grateful. So I look forward to more. Thank you so much.
Amy, congratulations on becoming a Google certified educator, and congratulations also on all of the exciting things that you tried out for your students. How very cool that you tried out so many different things and built up that confidence and are having fun while you're doing it. Your excitement and your passion for educating and trying new things is inspiring. That is so awesome, Amy. Okay, a couple more to go. Up next, we've got Mike Feldman. Let's see what Mike has to share.
Hey, Duct Tapers. Mike Feldman. And I am a technology integration coach. You can find me on Twitter at FeldmanTech. And two of the most amazing things, among the amazing things that I found from the Educational Duct Tape podcast this first season, were first of all, Wakelet we've used with students to share research when they're doing project-based learning. And it has cut down a lot of the back-end time for the students. And it's just been streamlined success. I've actually never used Flipgrid before using educational duct tape. I never really saw a point for it until someone on the podcast, and I can't remember who, started mentioning it and gave me a reason. And ever since then, I've been using it and getting teachers to use it, and it's been catching like wildfire. The last thing, and I think I said two, but here's a bonus. I'm not sure if I got this from listening to the podcast or reading discussions on Twitter under the Educational Duct Tape hashtag, but Desmos having activities in it, especially the polygraph one, that's like the Guess Who game, has been absolutely phenomenal. Thanks for all the work that you do, Jake, and I'm sure it's a lot because it takes away from your family and everything, and all of your input as well.
My favorite part about Mike's video there and his audio there is that we can hear the students in the background. That's teacher life right there, right? You're submitting to the Flipgrid and you can hear students in the background. We heard it in some of the other videos too. This is just the one where I noticed the student kind of yelling out at the very beginning. And I hope when you guys do things like that, you're telling your students what you're doing. I try to do that for my own kids at home too. You know, if I have to get on my phone really quickly to do something, I say, hey, I'm, responding to this person that teaches in such and such a school district where they asked me a question about using such and such a tool in their classroom to benefit their students, to show them that I'm not just, playing Candy Crush on my phone or something. And same thing in these situations. Hey, I am connecting to the other educators on a podcast about educational technology that's helping me level up as an educator. What a cool thing to be able to say to your students. But Mike, also the stuff that you're trying out with Flipgrid, with Desmos, with Wakelet, very cool stuff. I love that you are using educational technology along with PBL, project and problem-based learning is just so great for our students if done right. And Desmos, what an amazing tool. Mike's been doing some work on using Desmos not just in the math classroom, but on some Guess Who activities and things like that, as he mentioned there. Desmos is just fantastic. We've got one left to talk about, and this is last but not least. This is episode 3 guest Sarah Rivera with a special guest in her video, and that is her taxidermied armadillo. She really took me totally by surprise back in episode 3 when she told me that she collected taxidermied animals. I had no idea. And so if you go into the Flipgrid, you'll see that armadillo in the background. But let's check out the awesome things that Sarah has been doing in her classroom this year.
Hi, Duct Tapers. It's Sarah. I want to talk about this amazing project my kids did this year. So I was part of a design learning group that was held through Teachers Guild and IDEO that we met at Lakeland about once a month to talk about innovative thinking and also different projects that our kids could do. So the project that I came up with was called the Teach Me How To project. So what I asked my students to do is to pick a talent or a skill that they have and to construct a screencast or to do it in person to teach us something that they know that somebody else may not know. So some of the projects I got were amazing. One of my students apparently knows how to play the ukulele, which is really great and a really unique talent. I learned how to build a fire. I learned how to make a rainbow cake. I learned how to do a back handspring. So this project was just overall amazing, and I really feel like my students enjoyed it too, because they got to show off a side of them that maybe they don't display that often, or maybe other people don't know about them. All right, have a great summer.
Thank you for that, Sarah, and Sarah's friendly armadillo friend there. I love the way that Sarah is doing something in her classroom that helps students build competencies as presenters, as educators, as communicators, as all of those things, while also giving them an opportunity to kind of explore some of their own passions or interests or skills. Very, very cool opportunity for students, and I wish that students got more chances to do things like that. But with awesome educators like Sarah and some of you duct tapers out there, maybe we give them those chances, and that's just wonderful. All right, so there was a whole bunch of sharing from a bunch of duct tapers about things that they accomplished and tried and learned and put into practice this year in their classrooms and schools, thanks to what they learned from my guests and myself on the podcast. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing that stuff and for coming along for the ride with me, and for my wonderful guests for sharing this stuff. Now, let's see what the duct tapers have to share, through kind of our other venues that we talk about on a weekly basis. First up, Apple Podcast reviews. I'm going to share 2 today. Our first one comes from our friend Pam Hubler at Special Techie. She said it was titled Not Your Dad's Podcast. And she said, I used to think podcasts were so boring. I added some extra O's there, Pam. The last thing I needed was someone talking to me nonstop while I sit in an otherwise peaceful car driving to and from work. That's not the case anymore. Educational Duct Tape is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to for amazing ideas to use in the classroom today. It's great for teachers, coaches, administrators. Even if you aren't the technology guru in your building, Jake's witty sense of humor and ability to engage his guests in meaningful banter is the best part. Give it a listen. Your students will thank you. Thank you so much for that, Pam. And I think that last line is the best compliment I can get. Your students will thank you. I hope that if I'm creating a podcast where the students will thank their teachers for what they're getting out of it, that would just be wonderful. I would so appreciate if that was the case. So thank you, Pam, for that compliment. Next up, a review from @JMartinez727. It's titled Jake Miller Does It Again. And it says, this is an excellent podcast. Jake brings energy and passion to a host of ideas and topics in education. Give this show a listen. I think you'll agree that it is well worth your time. Thank you so much for that kind review, John. I really do appreciate all of the reviews on Apple Podcasts. There are still some more out there that I haven't got to and read. I promise I'll read them next season. I'm not going to forget about them. I appreciate them ever so much. If you haven't reviewed the show, I do appreciate the reviews. They help new listeners decide which podcasts to listen to and which one not to listen to. So if they see a whole bunch of these glowing reviews, they're more likely to listen into the Educational Duct Tape. And again, hopefully their students will thank them too. And again, that would just be wonderful if there were benefits that were reaching the students that were so great that the students would want to say thanks. That would just be so cool. But truthfully, even though I really do appreciate these reviews and they really help out ever so much, the biggest thing that helps in podcasting is actually subscribing. That's a big measurement in podcast world, is number of subscriptions. So if you haven't subscribed and if you're just manually downloading every week, please do go into your podcast app and subscribe. It'll also help you out over the summer when, if I drop a surprise episode in mid-June or mid-July or something like that, you'll automatically get it, even though you wouldn't have been expecting it, and go looking for it. And whenever I decide to start up in August, whether it's the first or second or third week, you won't have to go looking for it. It'll just be there and ready for you. So please do subscribe. Let's now jump over to the Twitter sphere and look at the hashtag EduDuctTape tweets. I've got 3 that I want to share today. We had 19 different people tweeting with the hashtag during the course of the last week since our Alec Koros episode last week. 3 that I want to highlight. One is from @FeldmanTech, who we heard earlier in this episode. He said, is this real life? Or is this just fantasy? A little bit of Queen there. Did @JakeMillerTech finally realize his mistake? Or am I practicing for next year to teach my students to be hashtag lateral readers? Hashtag EduDuctTape. Thanks @KorosA. I'm only halfway through episode 22, but I am liking what I hear. So what Mike's talking about here, you have to click on the link to see it, but he used the bookmarklet that Dr. Koros shared in that episode that allows you to change what's on a website and kind of show students how, we could make things look how we want to. The web is modifiable, and to create things that are clearly fake and have our students figure out how they should know it's fake. But what Mike did is took the it's pronounced GIF with a hard G stickers off my webpage and changed it to saying wrong on it, that it's not pronounced GIF. So Mike clearly has learned a new skill there, but Mike, I am sorry you were wrong. Pronouncing it GIF sounds ridiculous. It is pronounced with a hard G. Up next, my good friend Laura Cahill @EngageDucate. Sorry, Laura, I just want to keep teasing you about that. Says, trying to catch up on podcasts, so listening on 1.5 speed, which makes @JakeMillerTech's laugh sound a lot like Beavis's. Hashtag EduDuctTape. Oh my gosh, Laura, you have no idea how much I loved Beavis and Butthead back in the day. Yeah. Educational duct tape is awesome. Oh, it's my new favorite podcast, Beavis. Oh, goodness. Up next at Lissa Brunnan, not Lisa Brunnan, not Alyssa Brunnan, but Lissa, says the latest hashtag EduDuctTape podcast had a soapbox moment that hit home. Quality and quantity. Learning and teaching. I wish we could shift our emphasis in education. Thanks at JakeMillerTech for shining a spotlight on the fact that we don't have time to rush. And Lissa has done what has become kind of her trademark move here in the duct taper community and created a really cool little graphic to go along with that quote, "We don't have time to rush." I'm going to put a link to that tweet in the show notes so that you can go and see it if you'd like to. Up next, our new hashtag EduDuctTape tweeps of the week are at Beer EDU Pod, which is a real podcast. It's a good one. I've listened to it a couple times. If you are a beer drinker and an educator, which you obviously are for listening to this show, not drinking, for listening to this show, they have a podcast talking about education and enjoying a cold one while they're talking about it. Up next, a new hashtag EduDuctTape tweeter of the week at C_Allen_NBCT, at Chad Niedert. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, Chad, at JG Techie Teacher, and at JLSNEB. I don't know if it's JL Sneb or JLS Neb. I was confused when these have these combinations of letters and things like that in there. Please do keep up the hashtag EduDuctTape tweets during the summer months. I will certainly continue to be on the Twitters and engaging with you, and I will certainly share some of my favorites when we return in August. So if you tweet out a funny one, be prepared to hear it in August, or anything fun that you might want to share with us. We're not going to go to the flip grid for the show today because we shared so much from the flip grid. And now I've got, as the culmination of this entire 23 episode season of Educational Duct Tape podcasts, the crowning achievement of the podcast, and that is the season 1 Giggle Mix. Before it starts, I want to thank you all so much for listening, especially those of you that have been here from the beginning, but also those of you who join us late and are sticking with us. I am so proud of all of you for doing these things to benefit your students and having some fun in the process. I am so grateful that you're part of the duct taper community and that you're here with us on this great ride. It has been such a blast and so great connecting with all of you. I hope to hear from you all throughout the summer. I hope to connect with you at different conferences and things like that. Please do reach out on Twitter or by email to connect at any time. Please remember, if you want some stickers, send a message over to, well, don't send a message to, you go and submit a form actually at jakemiller.net/send-me-stickers. And if you'd like to hear me speaking, say go to jakemiller.net/speaking, or look at the list of sessions that are down the left side of my website. On the desktop version, you'll see a whole list of those presentations. Please continue to connect on social media. Please continue to tell your friends about the show, and please subscribe so that when those new episodes over the summer or in August become available, you get them automatically. And without further ado, here is the season 1 Giggle Mix. Thank you everybody so much.
Are you subscribed to that Educational Duct Tape show? You know that if you subscribe, you'll automatically get each episode, even if you're too busy the day it comes out.
Absolutely. I would definitely want a unicorn horn.
See, I was going horse's tail because I was figuring I could just hide that pretty easily. But you're trying to be more purposeful. You're like, I can get a lot out of that unicorn.
Absolutely. That's the difference between a man and a woman.
Right. You're being practical, and I'm just trying to cover things up.
You are.
Peanut butter? Who said peanut butter? Come on. Bologna? A piece of bologna? Why would I patch a bounce house with a piece of bologna? Who said that? Guys, come on. It's in the title of the podcast. I used duct tape.
And I also do collect taxidermy.
What kind of taxidermy do you have?
I have a couple different pieces for now. I have an iguana. I have an armadillo. We've got some beetles that are mounted in boxes. Let's see what else is down there. Makes me sound totally creepy when I say what else is down there, because they are actually in my basement right now.
What else is down there? Like, she puts the lotion in the basket or something, Sarah. What's going on in the basement? Hashtag EduDuctTape. That's hashtag EduDuctTape. Maybe I'm taking a little bit of a risk here by having the word duct in my title and having to remind you all of the time that duct is not spelled with a K, but it's spelled with a T. T as in technology.
2, I once played in a band called Tres Huevos.
The 3 eggs.
Okay. We didn't take ourselves too seriously. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, right? I kind of gave you a clue.
Maybe you're just a really good actor, baby.
Yeah.
These reviews make me so gosh darn happy. Gosh darn it, that makes me so happy. Which of these things do you consider to be less torturous? Having a bicycle or horse legs for the lower half of your body?
Less torturous?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go with a bicycle.
Okay.
OMG, Mr. Miller, I'm really stressed out and so behind in your course.
So if Carly was ordering a pizza, what would she order as a topping?
Oh. She's from California.
Right.
So, and I don't think she's going to go like really big, heavy into like a lot of toppings. I think she's, probably something more along with vegetables. That's all I'm going to say is vegetables. Maybe some mushrooms, throw that in there.
But they were busy looking at me like I had 3 heads and saying the word
proportionately.
It reminds me of how Jimmy Fallon pronounces big words when he's doing his teen girl talk show, Ew, on Tonight Show. Yeah.
I have all of my original teeth, that I'm supposed to have. Like, I did lose my baby teeth, but still have all my teeth.
It would be really creepy if you had the baby ones and the adult ones. That's your lie right there. My show is being advertised to you on a regular basis by these rolls of duct tape that you thought had other purposes in your life. That's a pretty good marketing scheme there, isn't it? Right?
The lie is that when I first saw Matt Miller, I definitely did not avoid him for the whole conference. We were in a Q conference and in a huge room full of people. He walked in the door. I was on the other side of the room. I screamed. I ran as fast as I could and I tackled him. And I heard someone across the room say, "Well, Carly just met Matt Miller."
That's just trippy for me. It's like, it's far out, man. Like, you guys are out there listening and stuff, and then you even do it.
This past summer, I was an extra in a Hallmark Christmas movie.
I have to be honest, I would not know if you were in a Hallmark Christmas movie because I would never watch anything that's on Hallmark. But I should ask my mother-in-law. Can I call my mother-in-law really quick? Dorothy, did you see Angela Wozecki in one of the Hallmark movies?
Oh,
yes, I did.
You're missing out. They're awesome.
Mr. Miller, I'm ready to build my bridge. Yeah, did you say your favorite food used to be taco salad?
I don't know. Did I?
I don't know. I don't know if you said it used to be or it is.
It is.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know if maybe it was your favorite and then you got mad at taco salad and you're not a fan anymore. Beyonce. I don't think there are 200 countries, Matt.
Okay. Well, it depends on what you say is a country and isn't a country, based on the analytics that I've got. But I think you're right in that in some places they don't say that there are 200 countries.
Matt Miller, is this fake news?
Maybe it is. I don't know.
OMG, you guys! I just interviewed Matt Miller. I can't believe that I called him out on saying that there are more than 200 countries. Jake! The guy has a blog so awesome that it's been viewed in more than 200 distinct regions, and I had to tell him that there were slightly less than 200 countries. I'm sorry, Matt, but there's 197 countries. I'm not even sure how many there are.
A couple times we've had students who maybe had done something in the Google slide deck.
I'm sorry. I was drawing on my phone and I saw it coming up on the computer and I was like, who is in my jam? Like, no, that's
you. That's you.
That's me. Okay, sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
What plan? I don't have a plan. Why is this my kid voice? Why does my 13-year-old kid voice sound like an old man who runs a summer camp somewhere in the woods?
Eureka! I'm naked with a crown.
Right, but why did he have to be naked? I don't know. Archimedes. You looked handsome?
But Jake, you didn't ever figure out my lie.
Oh my gosh, I never figured out your lie.
So we did the truth, but you didn't figure out my lie.
Okay, all right, all right, so let's just pretend that never happened. Okay, so
what if I'm not going to a conference? How can I get a podcast sticker?
Mostly cliff diving.
Cliff diving.
That's right. My wingsuit was dirty. I had to take it to the laundry, and they weren't on time. It was just a mess.
Yeah, I remember that panicked email you sent me from the laundromat. That was a crazy one. Oh yeah, Hulk Hogan, my ass man. I don't do it very good. Macho Man. I'm sorry. You know what I'm going to do to start messing with people is I'm just going to start pronouncing JPEG, GoPeg. I'll be like, no, it's a hard J. Really mess with everybody.
That'll be a good revenge.
My soapbox is over there in the corner just looking at me right now. It's got the sad puppy dog eyes. Listen, buddy. No, I'm not. No, I'm sorry. I'm not doing the soapbox today. Hey, just calm it down over there. No, listen. It's not. Today's not a soapbox day, okay? I know. You just stay over there and just look. I'll give you some ice cream after we're done, okay?
If I was a superhero, I would be Captain Efficiency.
Captain Efficiency? This is the lamest superhero ever.
Because they say if you were a superhero, your power would be efficiency.
Laughing at JakeMillerTech, where the end of his hashtag EduDuctTape is like a scene out of Romper Room. Will he say my Twitter name? I'm picturing like in the Avengers when they have to battle Thanos and to like all of the Avengers and like everybody from Marvel comes to help. You're like the first person there.
I'd be the first person killed, but I'd be the first person there.
Yeah, you're there 15 minutes early. It's just you and Thanos. And then Iron Man walks in and he's like, who are you? And you're like, I'm Captain Efficiency.
Captain Efficiency.
I made the Google Calendar invite and send it to you, Tony Stark.
Gosh, I sure do wish I could add data from one spreadsheet into a corresponding row of data in another spreadsheet.
Well, number one, you're weird. EdTech BFF, game time.
You have it. See, it's done. Take that out.
Cut. There it is. It's ready.
Whoa.
Which of the following would be less torturous, having a giraffe's legs or a giraffe's neck?
Oh my god. Oh my goodness. I think, oh my goodness. I don't know. That's like the same thing. They're too long. They're both too long.
Where in the world is JakeMillerTech? So you have your fear of balloons in common with my dog, Kermit. He's terrified of balloons.
I don't know how to take that.
Now, when he sees them...
Dad, you're just like my dog.
Right. When he sees them, he backs up and growls and barks at them. Do you do that too?
No, I don't.
I don't always get stuck in traffic, but when I do, I listen to @JakeMillerTech and the hashtag EduDuctTape podcast.
Hi again, Jake. I just realized that I'm wearing the same outfit that I was wearing the last time I made a video. So I'm either stuck in like a Twilight Zone episode where I'm reliving the same day, or I just don't like doing laundry that much.
And at 5_StarTech, which is the company that employs the very fine Sean Fahey. Very fine. It's not like I'm calling him handsome. I'm trying to say he's an awesome educator and he's a really good guest. I'm not calling him handsome. Good. Sean, you're perfectly handsome. I'm just not. Oh, this is going bad here. I should probably just wrap up this episode now while I have a chance.
We are going to talk about our love for Tony Vincent in one moment. Because that man is holy cow. It's your designated food hand.
Right.
The legs seem like it would get in the way.
It sure would. He also speaks I'm trying, Corey. I can't do it. He also speaks that thing fluently and enjoys long walks along the beach.
My name is Hugo Montoya. You killed my father for it. The guy had 6 fingers.
Okay.
Just take my word for
it. Okay, I believe you.
I guess the 6th finger? Yeah. Oh, see, I can't grow facial hair at all.
So you're good on that part.
It's a mute point.
Would you trade in not being able to grow facial hair for being able to grow facial hair but having it be pink?
Oh, ooh. I don't have any desire to grow it, though.
The correct answer is no. The correct answer is no. I don't want a pink beard.
Hey, if I have pink hair, it's got to match, though. Because I think it would be quite odd to have pink hair and then like a dark beard.
Right. You are an identical twin, and is your sister or brother?
Okay, Jake. Just to, you really want me to answer that?
Sure.
Jake, do you know what an identical twin is?
No, does an identical twin have to be same sex?
Yeah, we have the same genes.
Same genes?
You should know that.
I don't know that.
What do you teach?
I don't, oh God. I'm licensed to teach science, Sylvia.
Oh, you're so funny.
It's titled The Tonight Show of Ed. I hate looking at these on my phone because I can't tell the whole title. All I see is The Tonight Show of Ed P. I'm gonna guess it's The Tonight Show of Ed Podcasts, or maybe it's Ed P or Ed Poop. I don't know, Mike. I don't know what it says here.
Well, this is going to go back to my experience as a father of 5.
Right.
It does not matter how small the people are. If there are a lot of them, they will win. Give me the 1 horse-sized duck, please.
I agree with you. Alex, I'll take 1 horse-sized duck for 1,000, please.